What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinSportsReport.com publisher Edward Lewis. As always, this is Ryan Karchi, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight at CSU San Bernardino, where UCLA just wrapped up its first two-a-day of fall camp, and it was kind of an eventful day. A lot of news and notes and little nuggets here and there. The number one note came from Adarius Pickett, who switched from cornerback to running back. I thought it was a fantastic move. I've been kind of advocating it since really he signed last February. It's a very deep secondary. As Jim Moore kind of rattled off today, they have 8 guys that they really trust, 5 guys that they can put in the nickel. So Darius wasn't one of those 8. Yet at the running back spot, there isn't really anybody that can play there. So I thought that was a good move for him. We didn't really get to see him play a whole lot today because they're still trying to work him in the offense and get him figured out. But I think that move could pan out for them. In terms of injuries, nothing really too serious to note today. Everybody that was hurt yesterday is kind of still hurt today. Owa sat out the night practice. Caleb Benenoch sat out the night practice. Randall Goforth got a little bit dinged up at the night practice, but nothing too serious. But the one note that we wanted to address on here was Simon Goins. Jim Moore confirmed that he had surgery on his ankle last night, and I just want to get your take on what that does for the tackle situation at UCLA and what that means for Simon going forward.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Jim kind of made it clear that he doesn't want to redshirt Simon Goins. I know that was kind of a topic of conversation. Some people thought, give him a full year to recover from all these various ailments, but he doesn't want to redshirt him, mostly because I think he sees what's going on with the rest of their tackles. These guys are all kind of injury prone. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily throw that tag on, say, Caleb Benenoch, maybe Malcolm Bunch at this point, but Connor McDermott has missed some time. I know, these various guys have all sat out. Malcolm Bunch was sitting out today. Caleb Benenoch missed the last practice today too. So at that point with offensive line, I mean, they've kind of learned in the last few years that you can take all the depth that you can get. So I think it makes sense not to redshirt him. Obviously, at this point, they're pretty confident with Malcolm Bunch, and I think he's kind of that one guy who stood out to me at left tackle. And if anyone needs to stay healthy, it seems like it's him. Like I said, I think they're being pretty precautionary with a lot of the offensive line stuff. I think some of those guys probably could play if it was a game or not. But at this point, they really need Malcolm Bunch in the lineup. They really need to keep those guys healthy. So if we don't see them, a lot of this camp, don't be surprised. But at that point, you're really just trying to charge these guys up for the season because they can't afford to lose a ton of guys like they did, the past 2 years.
And Moore said he expected Simon Goins to be ready by week 3, which is the Texas game. So you never know. I mean, he's had a million injuries now, and Moore even said this was unrelated to the other injuries. So we'll kind of figure out where that one goes from here. Ryan, give me your top performers from today. 2 practices today. Who stood out to you in the morning and the night session?
First, especially in the morning session, I was impressed with Deion Hollins. I thought it was interesting. We talked to Jim Moore, and he I don't know if he inadvertently called him a quote-unquote role player. I think that maybe tells you what Moore thinks in terms of his chances of actually winning an outright full-time job at that spot. But at the same time, I mean, second day in a row, we saw him with this incredible get-off speed. Very clearly the quickest guy off the jump of any of those outside linebackers. He had a few more sacks today. There was one play I thought where I think Mike Faithful was at quarterback, and he snapped the ball out of the shotgun, and Deion was already there. I mean, he barely had touched the ball before Deion had already sacked him. There's no one else on this team that can do that. So I think at this point it's pretty clear that he's carved out a role, and he's done really well in these last few days. My other guy was Devin Fuller. I know, we kind of jazzed him up as much as we could. The media loved him last fall. Wasn't necessarily the world beater some of us expected, last season. Obviously, he led the team in reception, so that's nothing to really slouch at. But today, he really looked like that breakout, open space weapon that they were kind of expecting for him. I think they're probably just going to need to get him in more of those situations. He had one, I think it was that one short route where he just took off for a 50-yard touchdown from Brett Hundley. If they can get him in situations like that to make big plays, I think he will eventually have that breakout season. I think it's just a matter of them finding the right ways to use him.
My 2 came from the secondary. First and foremost, Priest Willis deserves some dap finally. He has been just getting crushed by us, by coaching staff, by whoever, fans, whomever. I mean, he had a brutal spring, a brutal year last year. Finally, it looks like the light's starting to click for him. These last 3 practices in a row, he's just looked like a completely different guy. And, when we were when I talk with a lot of the guys in the recruiting world, in this offseason and stuff, they said it's a lot about confidence with him. If he gets low, he's low. But when he gets high, he's obviously a Rivals 100 kind of 5-star, 4-star player. And that's what he's starting to show out here. He had a couple of new pass breakups tonight, a couple on Logan Sweet that in the past you would have seen normally grab or hold or PI, yet tonight he was real calm and cool. I think Demetrius Martin said this about Fabian Moreau, just quiet, at the point of attack. He never gets rattled, and that's where Priest is starting to settle in. It's still a ways to go for him, but these last 3 practices have been very encouraging, I guess, if you're a Priest Willis guy. My other guy is Anthony Jefferson. I thought he's been pushed hard by Tahan Goodman. I mean, Tahan Goodman has been arguably the best defensive player on this team outside of Miles Jack and Fabian Moreau. But he's responded really well. Anthony Jefferson had a couple pass breakups tonight. He's never afraid to stick his head in somewhere. I mean, the other day he plowed in an Nate Yesse, and nobody does that. So, yeah, he had a great night tonight, and those kind of 2 DBs are really people to watch as this kind of fall camp comes to an end next week.
Really, all the DBs have been impressive. I think, we talked to Demetrius Martin a little bit tonight, and I've given him credit before, but I think of any of their position coaches, he's just kind of worked a miracle with a defensive back core that was pretty bad 2 years ago. Kind of has made, crafted this amazing secondary out of nowhere. So definitely some dap for Demetrius Martin.
That'll wrap up our coverage tonight from UCLA's 6th day of fall camp. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Ryan_Karchi, and you can follow me on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.